Yes, so over 260 participants drawn from 16 countries across the African continent are here in Kigali, Rwanda for just one reason, and that's the Education Collaborative's June convening. And I've been joined in the studio by the Executive Director of the Education Collaborative, Rose Dodd. It's good to see you. So the first question I'll ask you is, how did we all get here?
The June convening of the Education Collaborative has been happening since its inception in 2017. The very first one had 12 institutions represented, and this one has over 70 represented. It's the Education Collaborative's main flagship platform for bringing together our member institutions, but also institutions that are just looking to learn about what the collaborative is all about. So it's always a great time to come together. We share evidence of how far we've come, how well we are doing on the goals we have set for ourselves. And then we provide, a space that is with not too much pressure for new members and new institutions to just get to know us better.
And this is the 8th edition. If asked to assess the achievements you are most proud of, maybe there's not enough time to list them. Let's say top 3. Which 3 would you want to talk about?
Well, I think the very first one would be the increase in the number of institutions. Increasingly, we're having to balance out how many institutions versus how many persons per institution, right? Trying to decide, okay, are we going to be admitting more institutions, or are we going to be allowing individual institutions to expand the number of stakeholders within the organization they bring, right? And that's a great outcome, because then it shows that the institutions that are repeat institutions are seeing the value in it, meaning that each year they are showing up. There are institutions here who have been coming to the June convening since 2017. So that's one. Another one is it allows us to really bring the conversation to stakeholders in industry and government policy, because it provides a platform for them to come and see in one place, right, the evidence of institutional excellence that is being replicated amongst our members. And over the years, we've seen that it's really garnered interest from these key stakeholders as well. And thirdly, it's really been a great place to encourage those that have been setting the pace or leading on certain key institutional changes or transformative initiatives. Because when they come and they share it with the network, they find that others immediately jump on, and then that begins to expand the evidence of what works, the benchmarks of excellence that work on the continent in higher education. So it's really, the outcomes are very clear with the June convening.
Yeah, and this year's convening is very student-centric. The theme is recentering student development, reflecting, mobilizing, and realigning efforts for a transformational student experience. Why this focus on students at this time? How did you come up with this theme? And what are the outcomes you're looking for?
Right. So, of course, all institutions are educating students, right? That's the main reason for which these institutions exist. Sometimes we just really get so caught up in our daily activities as institutions in the different offices that we almost lose sight, right, of the reason for which we are doing what we do. So bringing student development and the focus on it back to the center is what we are doing with this. It's going to be our theme for the next 3 years in the Education Collaborative. And it's going to allow us to bring to light those units in higher education that sometimes are overlooked or get lost. Admissions, registry, financial aid, units like campus logistics, who takes care of the classrooms, safety, student services, student governments, student leaders. So we are bringing back to the center these key areas of higher education. And so that's what the convening is about. It's really a start to get all the stakeholders engaged in the Education Collaborative and higher education in Africa at large to just recenter on what really matters and why we are here.
Okay, and in your opening speech at the symposium, you spoke about borders being closed and students being turned away from other opportunities elsewhere, and the need for them to refocus on what we have here. And you want to create that kind of environment. Tell us more about that.
Well, Africa has great institutions. We've learned over the last few years to engage in the Education Collaborative. There are institutions in different parts of the continent that are doing excellent work, churning out excellent students, right? So what we're driving at is that it is possible for the continent to provide that space for excellence in higher education, right? Global excellence, not just excellence for Ghana or excellence for Nigeria or excellence for Lesotho, no, but excellence for Africa. So that a student from South Africa, when they are trying to study psychology, know that there's a top tier institution on the continent that they can go to, right? The first choice should be here on the continent. If you choose to go outside the continent, it should be because you chose to go outside the continent, not because you are being driven out because you haven't found the best quality here. So that's what we are driving at. And we are seeing that it is possible to build that excellence on the continent. And the institutions in the Education Collaborative really are committing to that goal.
Yeah, and I know you have lots of plans. You have a goal of reaching 1.1 million students by 2030. And one of the ways you do this is through the establishment of your regional hubs. And I understand that there's a new hub coming up. So tell us more about that.
Yes, so the regional hubs really help us to drive contextual, practices and contextual implementation of the different initiatives that institutions are coming up with. It helps with quicker learning, right? If I'm learning from the institution in the country very next to me, it's very likely that we are all operating the similar regional regulatory system. And so that's why we went with the regional hub structure. It also supports with ownership. Yeah. Right? Because institutions within the regions, led by a strategic committee of university leaders in that region, determine the priority they want to focus on for higher education in their region. So as all of the different countries and institutions gather evidence, together, it becomes a more compelling statement for that region. And then we bring all the regions together for the continent. So Southern Africa Hub region is the newest addition to our regional hubs outside of Western Africa and East Africa. Southern Africa institutions are beginning to really come together, join forces to figure out how do we work together. There's South Africa, there's Lesotho, Botswana, all of them coming together, right? So that's where we are now with the regional hubs, bringing in Southern Africa.
And Northern Africa, when is it there, Tim?
Northern Africa institutions engage in the Education Collaborative, right? And increasingly, institutions from that region are beginning to see, okay, there is something to looking at the entire continent, right? Not just looking within ourselves. We have come to find that there are definitely differences with the regions. However, when you dive deeper, we realize it's all the same continent and we are all working towards the same goal, right? So the regional hub model really is trying to uplift that and then bring it all together.
Yeah, and another thing you stressed on in your address was the sub-Saharan rankings. So tell us more about that, your plans for the ranking and how important that is to the work of the collaborative.
Well, the Sub-Saharan Africa University Rankings, as it's been, termed and led by Times Higher Education, has been excellent, right? It's been one way for us to really measure our activities, our outcomes, our goals against the missions that we've committed ourselves to. We've set a mission. We are doing a bunch of things. How well are we doing along that mission? It's not about me being better than you. It's about how well am I moving along what I said I was going to do, and how well are you moving along that, and how can I learn from you to improve an area that you're good at, so that I can do better in that indicator. How can you learn from me to also improve on certain indicators that I'm better at, right? So that's what the rankings is about. Not really about someone is better than the other. It's not a competition, right? So what we are committing to now is to carrying this forward.
Okay.
Carrying this forward and making it more sub-Saharan Africa higher education rankings. Because we have multiple types of higher education institutions on the continent. Besides universities, there are colleges, there are training institutes, there are TVET, polytechnics. How do we capture higher education as it is in Africa? And how do we, with every ranking publication, increasingly represent what matters to the continent's development in there? So over the next few years, we are going to be working towards achieving that and widening the influence of the Sub-Saharan Africa higher education rankings.
And further to that, to put you on the spot a bit, what are some of the metrics you will be looking at as you assess these?
I mean, the university rankings actually started with a very strong set of metrics, right? That were developed in partnership with the Times Higher Education, working with the Governing Council of University stakeholders, leaders, etc. It focuses on things like being Africa-centric. You know, how are your activities really contributing to the continent's development and what matters, right? How well are you doing in employability initiatives? How well are you doing in research that actually contributes to, you know, implementation and improvements in the continent? So the metrics of the ranking as it stands now really does represent our work and our focus in Africa. And going forward, the whole point of these things is they're not static. Right? As we grow, as we learn, we improve it and we update it, right? And so that's what we are going to be doing, updating it, not necessarily overhauling the entire thing, but updating it with each year that we publish.
And there was an initiatives fair this morning, which, as the name would suggest, showcased some of the initiatives here at the Educollab. You're doing a lot. I'll give you the opportunity to speak about some of the initiatives that you feel you want people to know more about.
Well, there's a couple of, I'll speak about one new one,
Yeah.
and then maybe one of the existing ones.
Sure.
One new initiative that we are embarking on currently is student exchanges. We are trying to figure out, and we are on course, how do we promote student mobility, faculty mobility on the continent, within Africa? How do we get a student from Ashesi University to be able to complete a semester or a year of study in Stellenbosch University without having to graduate later than her cohort, right? And so that's one of the key initiatives that is beginning to be built and to develop in the Education Collaborative. And institutions have already committed to it. It's probably going to take some time because there's differences in prerequisites in curriculum. There's differences even in the year of study. Some countries have 3-year undergraduate programs, others have 4-year. But we are committed to figuring out where do we start, even if it's with summer exchanges or you know, exchanges during the long breaks, or with week exchanges. So we get to a point where we can be exchanging over a semester, over a year within Africa. Institutions have the capability and they have built the expertise of exchanging with institutions outside the continents. We are going to be refocusing those capabilities and those excellences to figure out how to exchange within the continent.
Yeah, you have a... Sounds good. That's a lot, and we know it will come to fruition because one of the things we like about the collaborative is the rate at which they move. It's fast. But even though you're moving very fast, there's no journey that's totally smooth. What would you say have been some of the challenges you've faced, and how have you overcome some of them?
I mean, if you ask me, like you said, things move fast, you know, but some things also move very slowly, right? Okay. In order to shift policy or influence policy, in order to really change behaviors, right, you need to just commit to consistency, right? And committing to consistency means that you need to see the bigger picture, the long-term picture. And sometimes that can be challenging, right? Because oftentimes institutions have been used to things happening very quickly, quick results, right? So getting us all to the point where we come to understand that this is a long haul, this is a long term. Yes, of course, we will record some immediate victories, immediate successes, but the main vision here of transforming an entire system that's been there for hundreds of years is going to take time. And that is a challenge we engage with every day in the Education Collaborative, right? Reminding ourselves constantly, confirming to ourselves that excellence is possible on the continent. So I wouldn't say it's a challenge that we've gone over and we are done, and it's something we engage with every day, and we address it by consistently and constantly reminding ourselves by the evidence that's already coming out that we can do it when we work together as institutions committed to the same vision.
So 2027, the next convening takes place where?
2027 in June.
Yeah.
That is all the information I have now.
Okay, that's fine. So when I interview you, and I still believe I'll be around to, so when I interview you 2 years from now, what would you want to refer to between then and now as the tangible outcomes?
One of the key ones is that we would have successfully implemented one student exchange program within Africa. Successfully. We are already implementing faculty exchange programs, right, between institutions in different countries. So that's one key outcome. Another key outcome is that we just launched this entrepreneurial ecosystem development tool that is supposed to help institutions, first of all, diagnose their entrepreneurial ecosystem, identify the gaps, and then figure out who in the network can support them to fill those gaps. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that tool would have really supported institutions to improve on the outcomes of their entrepreneurial and entrepreneurship ecosystems, right? So I'm looking forward to reporting on that in 2027. And of course, the growth in the student numbers we've reached beyond 400,000, the growth in the member institutions we've engaged, pushing up a 50, towards 140 goal. I'm hoping by 2027 we'll be over 50 mark. And then of course, the depth in how institutions are engaging in the convening.
And you've done really well 8 years on, because your first picture could probably, when you met in Accra, a phone could have taken that picture.
Yes.
Yesterday's picture required a drone if everyone was to appear in it. So congratulations on the progress you've made. Any final words for us?
No, I'm just really excited to be on this journey with all higher education institutions. The truth of the matter is, what the Education Collaborative does is we create a platform. None of these capacity building, mentorship is done by my office or my team. It's done by the institutions themselves for each other. Right? We create a platform for institutions to know that it's possible. It's possible to look, beyond what we have been told is not possible for the continent. It's really possible when we work together. So we will transform higher education. Every student on the continent will be able to look back and see there's value in our higher education system.
Yes, and I know I said the last question, but let's look beyond that. Are there plans to involve institutions and practices outside Africa, or is very much just focusing on the continent?
Oh, definitely. There are plans to learn from successful models from outside Africa. A lot of our institutions have extensive experience and partnerships outside of the continent, right? When they bring those experiences to their campuses, they update it, they improve it so that it works. So what we are doing is focusing on what works for us, even when we are learning outside. And then once we figured out what works and what really succeeds on the continent, we want to contribute to the global voice, right? So that when we are speaking about higher education in Africa, it's being said and spoken by those who offer higher education in Africa.
So we're here in Kigali, the first time outside Ghana for the June convening. And the MasterCard Foundation has been a strong partner supporting your work. How critical has their support been?
The partnership with the MasterCard Foundation has not only enabled the growth of the Education Collaborative, but they've also inspired us to bring to the fore areas in gender inclusion, in highlighting persons with disability, and then also in bringing to fore students in the work that we do. They also have introduced us to multiple partnerships across the continent. So the work of the foundation and their partnership with us has been a great enabler for the work of the Education Collaborative.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.